Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. We have a special guest with us. We have Johnathan Price. He's in Fort Frances. Johnathan, how are you?
I'm doing quite well, Carlene. It's nice to chat with you again.
I know it has been so long. How long has it been? Tell everybody.
It's been 8 years, probably a little more
Yeah,
than 8 years since we were in school together at Humber. Yeah, at Humber College. It's
yeah,
been a little over 8 years. Wow, hard to believe.
right? Do you feel old?
Yeah, I do. How about you?
I do. Even though people tell me I do not look my age,
Right.
those people, I love them. Like someone today was talking to me and they thought I was 26. And I said, I
Yeah.
love you. I love you. I really do. You're good for my ego, but I'm not 26. I'm actually 36, you know?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and there's this whole thing with women talking about their age, like how it's
Uh,
this thing about like you certain women don't want to talk about their age. Once you get a certain age, you don't talk about it, you know? You
well,
don't say how.
that comes from society putting that on women. Society, the patriarch, as it were. I mean, I could go off on a whole tangent here, but I think it's more women have been made to feel that once they're past a certain age, that they're a little less than, which is not even close to being the truth, obviously. But I think that's part of the I don't want to say my age. You never ask a woman her age. I think it comes from society and the patriarchy and men making women feel a little less than once they passed a certain age, and that's terrible, and we need to change that.
Yeah, well, maybe we could start the change with this conversation. So, what is the
Right.
age? I mean, what is the age really? I mean, when I turn 40, is it when I turn 50 that we don't want to talk about the age factor anymore? Is it when I start getting wrinkles? I guess it's once you get to a certain age in your life and you don't feel comfortable discussing your age anymore because you're not at your prime anymore. Because
Right.
now 40 is the new thing, or I
Oh,
think
it
50.
is.
Is it 40 or is it 50? Because I
Oh,
remember like, you know,
well, 40 in a sense. I don't think 40 seems as daunting, and maybe it's because maybe we're just saying that because we're getting closer to it, but it doesn't seem as daunting as maybe it once did. And even 50, I think people's outlook is much more youthful than it used to be, and that's just my opinion. You're only as old as you feel, but I think what can be difficult is mentally you feel maybe as young as you ever were, and then you know physically sometimes you don't feel as young as you do mentally. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, like it's just now it's like, oh, my back hurts,
Oh,
or
exactly.
like everybody, I feel like that's the running joke. It's like when you're an adult now, all you talk about is how tired you are and how
Uh-huh.
and how much your back hurts, right? Oh
That's it.
my
or,
God.
or or whatever ailment is bothering you, and you realize, oh my gosh, mentally I'm still that 25-year-old, and but physically I'm not, and there are a lot of changes, and I think you have to start taking care of yourself. You have to start making better lifestyle choices, and that's something that I struggle with. But it's one of those deals that and there are going to be people that come to you and I and say, you're only 35, you're only 36. It's you still got lots of time. But yeah, we're essentially we're not kids anymore. Um, so so
I know.
yeah, but
I watch kids play in the back in the playground, or I tell my nephew because he said to me, he's like, "Oh, Auntie Carlene, I can't wait till I'm 14." I'm like, "Why? You just turned 12." He's like, "Oh,
right.
when I'm 14, I'll be able to play the games that I can't play now." But I say to him, "Enjoy being 12." I mean,
Yes,
because it goes by so quick, and then and now that we're our age, we're like in our mid 30s.
that's
It's
right.
kind of like I wish I had those moments where I don't have to worry about the next bill I have to pay, or all these other responsibilities that come with adult life, right?
There's no question, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. Is we don't know how good we've had it. We're always in a hurry to grow up, and then when we finally get there, we on some level, obviously life can still be great, and we find positives and blessings and that kind of stuff. But on a certain level, it's, why was I in such a hurry to get here?
Yeah.
Man, being a kid was the life. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of blessings at every, and there's a lot of blessings, a lot of benefits at every point in life, in every walk of life. You just got to look for them, I think. But this whole thing about not being comfortable talking about our age, you are truly as old as you feel mentally. And I think that age really is just a number. So we got to get over that in our society, and we got to switch our thinking in making women feel like they can't talk about their age, because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have to talk to more women and find out what really is the root of this problem. But our show tonight, we're going to talk about, well, you know what? This show's about relationships. So any kind of relationships. And I think we're getting to the core of just oneself, because any relationship in your life starts with you. You have to want to improve. And I feel like I haven't talked to you in so many years, but I feel like you've done a lot to improve yourself, and we're always improving ourselves. And, I think it's harder during COVID, right? I feel like we were just talking about the things that we would do before, because you are in Fort Francis. For those who are just listening to the show, it's Johnathan's in Fort Francis. And how long of it? It's like 18 hours, right? From Toronto.
It's pretty far, which is hard to believe because it's still in Ontario.
Right.
I moved here right after we were finished broadcasting school at Humber, and I've been working at the radio station here, 93.1 The Border, for 8 years. It's a real small town, but I've had a lot of wonderful experiences here. I've met so many wonderful people. It's been a good life so far, and I think I'm still supposed to be here.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
So for those who want to check out Johnathan show, Afternoons with Johnathan at 93.1 The Border, from 12 to 6. So I mean, it's great time,
Central time, by the way.
Central time. Central time. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm actually an hour earlier than you there in the GTA.
Mm-hmm.
It's 93.1theborder.ca, and if you want to tune in from anywhere, that's the great part about radio stations now. You can stream them online, right?
I know. I feel
from
like
anywhere.
I'm in the online bubble. Like I don't even have to be in the same room with you anymore.
Exactly. Well,
God
again,
forbid we do that.
Are we going to be allowed to do that again?
I don't know. I think when it does happen, I'll be like, Johnathan, I'm so comfortable at home. I don't want to leave.
You know what? You and me both. It's actually been interesting. My routine has not changed all that much. I still get to go to work. I still get to, because we don't allow too many people in the radio station, right?
Yeah.
And I recognize how fortunate I am, and the fact that I live in a remote area, meaning it really hasn't had any community spread here. We're still doing our part.
Yeah.
We're still we're wearing masks indoors, indoor public places. We're doing that here now.
Well, just talking about that. So I'm not going to say the company I work for because I have a temporary job, but so one store shut down because someone got COVID, and they went to an event, and there was 1,000 people there. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you go to an event where there's 1,000 people? Like, you're putting yourself at risk, right? And so they have to shut down the store. They have to clean, sanitize, and the store is not going to be open until Tuesday.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, COVID-19 is real. I mean, the numbers are not as high. Like, I mean, I still feel like sometimes the focus is too much on COVID. Like, I have to say to people, I'm like, listen, there's other diseases other than COVID. Like, there's the flu before COVID. There was the cold. Like, people get colds still. People still get allergies.
Absolutely.
Let's remember that, right?
And I think it comes down to basically we have vaccines, we have treatments for those things. We don't have a treatment for this. Mm-hmm. So until we do, then we kind of have to do our part to to make sure that it doesn't spread. And I think certainly here in Canada, we're doing a really good job of it. And I think with school opening up, I think
we'll see once that happens, right? I think
right,
because we're like, I mean, it's been like summer's always quiet. Like, I mean, it's not quiet. This has been a very, very quiet summer.
Yes.
The CNE is not even open. Like so many things that we are so used to.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, even up here, we do fishing tournaments in several areas that are close to Fort Frances. We do one of our own in July, and there's always a lot of events surrounding it. There's a lot of outdoor events because up here we get incredibly cold. Like we're literally right next to the Minnesota border.
Oh.
And if you've ever known, anything about the climate in Minnesota, it gets ridiculously cold. And like we're basically 5 hours from Thunder Bay. We're 5 hours from Winnipeg. We're 5 hours from Minneapolis. We're a pretty remote community. But in this part of the world, with the wind chill in the wintertime, it's feeling like minus 40.
Wow. So if I want to go to Winnipeg, then I'll just hop on over and be like, Johnathan, I'm coming to visit you. Because it's only 5 hours as opposed to 18 hours, which is quite a bit. Yeah.
Exactly. But no, we have a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of, community-based events, because we have to make our own fun. We're just remote enough that day to day we kind of have to make our own fun. There's a lot of community pride here in Fort Frances. There's always something going on. And of course, we know about it because we're the radio station. We're either chatting about it or we're there covering it, or, one of us is emceeing it. And it has been such a quiet summer. But I recognize that the fact that I still have a 9-to-5 job I can go to, I still have a paycheck coming in. I recognize that I've been really lucky and really fortunate through this. And, let's hope we get back to some semblance of normal sometime in the near future.
Right. It's like the unforeseeable future. I think the unknown is what makes people stressed out, not knowing how long it will last, because a lot of things are not going to go back to normal, especially with, I don't even know if you heard this, but the CNE, they lost how much I think they lost 35 million this year.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't even know if they're going to recover from this pandemic in terms of reopening next year. So,
and that's the thing. I mean, we're seeing this all over the world. Even, little mom and pop shops, especially in a small area where I am, some places have closed down and they haven't reopened. I mean, restaurants in Toronto, I know this, some of them aren't going to reopen. We are living for our generation and probably even our parents' generation. We're living in unprecedented times. This is, you go back 100 years to the Spanish flu. This is, we have not seen something like this in a century. And we I don't, like you said, I don't think we're going to go back to normal. We are in a state of, this is the new normal for right now. But even after, this is in our rearview mirror, there are certain things that are going to be the new normal. Like, for instance, shaking hands. I've heard people speculate that we won't go back to shaking hands. And I've heard people, speculate, or not speculate, but this is just something that I've noticed. If you go to the grocery store and you see those shields that are up, right? You go to, any business that is open to the public now, and they have all these precautions in place. When you think about it, you go through cold and flu season, you go through, those times of the year. For a cashier behind the counter, it's probably a good idea to have that shield there anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, when you're dealing with the public, healthier. I mean, my full-time job, you know how you're talking about being grateful that you work every day. So I've been laid off for 5 months. And the one thing I can say about having that time off is that I am grateful that I was able to receive CERB. Yes. I'm one of those people that was. I mean, not everybody was eligible for CERB.
Right.
And I was able to get, that funding, and then my employer, you know what I mean? It's been a whirlwind, but I was comfortable for at least a few months, and now I have to start looking for something more seriously, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all touch and go we are looking at it day by day. But hearing you say those things, Johnathan, it makes me think like how real it really is, because sometimes I'm at work or I'm at Walmart and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a movie. I feel like
Absolutely.
this is surreal sometimes. And I don't know if you've had vivid dreams, but I've had vivid dreams during this pandemic where I'm like, wow, I've never dreamed anything like this before. Like it's just hearing you say it
Well,
is just
it's
it's a
interesting you
reminder.
say that. Absolutely, it's interesting you say that because there was an article in the New York Times like at the very beginning of this, and the article, you know, in a nutshell, the article talked about people going to search engines like Google, and they were asking, you know, why am I having weird dreams lately? And I think it speaks to we're going through something, like I said a few moments ago, that we, you know, as a modern day society, have never gone through before. You know, having to wear masks everywhere, having to physical distance. It's again, you feel like you're in a movie, and I certainly know what you mean about vivid dreams. I'm not the best sleeper to begin with, but I just got my hands on some melatonin a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I've been sleeping a little bit better. And but yeah, my dreams are. I think vivid is the right term for them, and I'm not. They're not distressing to me. They're just a lot more clear and a lot more like I remember them a little bit more. But yeah, they're you're not alone, Carlene. They're
Yeah.
all over the world. People are dreaming like that.
Yeah, and you
It
know what? I don't
seems.
always remember my dreams. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like, we're talking about ourselves and not necessarily how your relationships have been impacted. But I think I do want to ask you. I haven't seen you in a while, so I don't know. Like the last person I was talking to, we're talking about relationships during COVID, and of
Right.
course, I find even the simplest thing of we're having a conversation right now, but
Yeah.
I feel even still, I've been talking to people more on the phone during this pandemic than I did before. Like I could tell you, Johnathan, like more people called me on my birthday, and then sending a text message. I've been connecting more with friends over the phone. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I feel like we are connecting more in a traditional way.
You know what?
Um,
I would agree to that, and I think it comes from, you know, we need that interaction, and when we're not getting that face to face interaction, then we need to seek it out in you know the safest, most practical way we can. And yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. My dad, he's just turned 70, and he lives in Mississauga. Um, he's somebody that normally would be out and about, and you know when he does grocery shopping and whatever, he'd go to 3 or 4 different stores to get the deals and the flyers and the coupons and all that stuff. So he's never been one to sit still. What happened is, and we look at it kind of as, or I certainly do, as sort of a blessing in disguise, and he is healed from that, thank goodness. I want to say, was it January or February? Might have been February. He fell, you know, at home in his apartment, and he cracked his hip. But what that did is that when March rolled around, might have been January. So when March rolled around, you know, he had support. My brother has been wonderful to help him. You know, people in the building have been wonderful to help him. I, at the time, said, "Look, if you need me, I'll make it work. I'll come home." And he wasn't concerned about it, but he was sort of put in a position where he had to stay home through sort of the worst of it. And I look at it as sort of a blessing in disguise. But yeah, there were days where, you know, certainly in the very beginning when I knew that he was home alone, and using a walker and stuff like that, I was calling him every day, and I never did that. But I think, you know, we sort of crave that human connection, even if it's just picking up the phone. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? And you're checking in on the elderly too, because if they're considered high risk, we're not
Yeah.
spending as much time with them. I was connecting more with my great aunt who lives in Pickering and
Yeah.
just seeing how she's doing because she lives on her own. But yeah, I think more so now than ever, we have to make sure that, the people that we care about are doing okay. You know what I mean? Because
Absolutely.
it's a different time.
And I think we have to
Yeah.
check in with the people that, you know, that we care about, that we don't see every day. But I think we also have to do a better job of checking with the people that we do see and interact with, more on a more regular basis as well, because, a lot of people are going to work and going home and going to work and going home. And especially for people, like myself, who, I'm single, I live alone. The people that I see are the people that I work with. And, there have been other people that at the radio station as well that live alone and, are single. And so I think we have to check in with each other, even if it's somebody that you work with, because that's really the only social interaction or face-to-face interaction you're getting. So it's not just the people that we love and we don't see all the time. It's the people that we interact with every day. We essentially, we got to take care of each other.
Yeah.
Because it's, we're going through something that feels like it's out of a movie, something that's once in a generation. So yeah, I think relationships are changing in a sense that we're reaching out to people that, maybe we wouldn't reach out to on a regular basis. We're reaching out to them more. And I think certainly person to person, maybe we're being kinder and gentler to each other too. And I know that seems very strange for the times that we live in. I'm talking, the inner circle of people in your life. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? That kind of stuff. I think we're within our own circle. I think, our day-to-day circle, I think we're getting kinder and gentler.
Yes, of course.
Even though as they say, Rome seems to be burning around us in many other forms, in many other ways that have just sort of heightened the strangeness of it all, to say the very least. I think, day to day, I'm noticing people are kinder to each other. But I live in a small town. People are kinder to each other.
I just want to say, you lived here before you moved to Fort Francis, and I don't know, but you've been there for 8 years. But do you feel like you are more of a small town person than you are a city boy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, some people like the small town, and I visited before this pandemic happened. I was so thankful I did that. I went to Port Hope and I went to Coburg, and I love both of them. They're really nice little small towns. Even last week I was in Newmarket, and they have a nice little downtown area,
right?
And it's so nice to get away from the city. So I guess my question for you is, you must like the small town. Like, what's the difference, like, that you've noticed?
Well, it's interesting. You talk about this show being about relationships, and I really do think people, from an interpersonal perspective, are much kinder to each other in a small town setting. You walk down the street in Toronto, and people don't even look at each other. People don't even make eye contact or God forbid smile, right? Because you think, well, why is that person smiling at me, right?
Yeah.
So here in Fort Francis, and I grew up in a smaller town. I grew up in a smaller town called Bolton, but that was
I didn't know that. I think you did mention it, but I forgot. It's been so long.
Well, even Bolton is what, 25,000 people, and
right.
It's a bedroom community, and in a sense that people go to Mississauga, people go to Toronto, people go to Brampton to work, 5 days a week, and then they want their sort of downtime in the suburbs with their family, in a place like Bolton, because it's only like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at there is there was not a lot of community pride. It was a nice place to live, but you didn't really interact with your neighbors all that much, and you didn't. So I think the smaller setting for where you live, it lends itself to people being friendlier to each other. You walk down the street, you say hello, you smile, from the moment I got here, and I recognize that I had a really unique in that. Oh, what do you do? Well, I work at the radio station. Oh, I listen to the radio station. I thought I recognized your voice. So I realized that when I got here 8 years ago, it was a really nice in. And of course, you're kind of a public figure in a very, and it always makes me feel uncomfortable to say it. But you're kind of a public figure. and so you get to know people before you even know them, you know. So
Yeah.
I was really lucky in that sense. But as far as being a small town person, I think the relationships, you know, just day to day with your neighbors and your colleagues and the people that you interact with, it's much kinder, it's much friendlier, and I don't know if I could get used to going back to a place that wasn't. And you know, I'm really lucky. I continue to be lucky in a sense that everything I need, you know, even doctors, dentists, eye doctors, they're all here.
Yeah.
And you know, especially for me because I do have vision issues and I can't drive.
Oh, I didn't know
Have
that your
Yeah,
vision issues like prevented you from.
yeah, and so I'm really very fortunate to be in this position, you know, geographically, not just at a time like this, but yeah, I think the relationships in a small town, there's a softerness to it, there's a kinderness to it. I think maybe the only downside sometimes is people aren't open to change, especially as the world continues to change around us. It's a tough struggle. I think we've got a lot of wonderful people that live in small towns, but we also have a lot of people that are very small minded. That doesn't mean they're not good people at their core. It's just they're not open to change and they're not open to seeing things outside of their bubble, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's good and bad. And I recognize my experience is going to be different than somebody else's experience just because of who I am and what I am. Um, but I definitely think I'm kind of spoiled living here, and a lot of it has to be rooted in the people, and that certainly speaks to how we treat each other and relationships for sure.
Definitely. Relationships that with your colleagues and your neighbors and your friends are crucial to your overall self, and they make you a better person always.
Yeah.
I was born in a small town in
Where were you
Grenada.
born?
I was born in
Okay.
Grenada. Yeah, a very
Okay.
small island. And the population is 112,000 people right now. So if we're going to be talking about things, I mean, here we are. This show is about relationships. And I also started a new show, Nutmeg Nation. And the one thing I want to say is that you're right. Small towns, people are so much more friendly. It's a culture shock every time I go back home because it's like everyone is so friendly. They say good morning to each
Yeah.
other. Like that's the thing overall. And, you know, if you want to visit somewhere that is beautiful in the Caribbean and they embrace you and make you feel welcome, Grenada is one of those places. But as you were talking, Johnathan, I did look up the population because I'm in Scarborough
Yeah.
and I don't know, 2018, they did, I guess this is what it's showing right now. And it's showing that Scarborough is, what is it? 100 and wait a minute. Toronto, that's what Toronto is. But I was looking it up. It said in 2016, Scarborough's population was 632,098. You know what I mean? So I'm not
Wow.
sure. That was 4 years ago, right?
Right.
But obviously, a lot of people live in Scarborough, and there's always this misconception that Scarborough is a bad area. But I think from what I've been learning is that Flemington Park is a bad
Okay.
area. There's pockets of bad areas throughout Scarborough, and I think the problem is there's so many rundown buildings, so people believe
Yes.
that it's a bad area because oh my god, look how many apartment buildings, like they look so bad, like they're in bad shape, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been living here for over a year, and everything seems fine.
Well, that's great.
I used to live here years ago with my aunt at Lawrence and Galloway. And
Okay.
Galloway is known as a bad area. I heard so many things that actually scared me sometimes because
Okay.
I'm just like, whew, you know, I should be worried. You know what I mean? But I think it like people scare you like when they say certain things. You know what I mean? And
Certainly.
yeah, and the news and the media scares you too, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you see all these things in the news, like Jane and Finch is a bad area,
Right.
like Keel and Finch close to York University, like it's just,
Yes.
you know. But I think,
And
like you said, yeah,
it's tough. I think it's I think the root of it, to really truly simplify, something that I don't feel I can speak eloquently about,
Mhm.
is people just don't treat each other with the softness that they do in a smaller area.
Yes.
And it's a real shame. And I think it's the root of a lot of incredibly big issues and huge problems that, we gotta treat each other better. Um, and that certainly speaks to this theme of relationships. I know that's an oversimplification for a lot of things, certainly coming from a guy like me, but we just
Guy
have to
from
treat each other
Bolton.
better.
Who's
Yeah,
this guy from
exactly.
Bolton? Really?
Right.
You know what I mean? What does he know? He
Well,
doesn't know it.
you and I also both know exactly what I mean.
I know.
It's not for me to speak
No,
to
you
any
don't
of that
have
kind
to
of
be
stuff.
an expert. You just have to have an opinion. And your opinion is based off of living where you've been living for
Right.
8 years. And we all
Exactly.
have, everyone has an opinion, and it's okay to have an opinion. But I think it's always nice to have an opinion, especially if you have experience based on it. And we are two different people. We went to the same
Absolutely.
college and we've had different experiences getting through this thing called radio. Like you are in
There's no
terrestrial
question.
radio, and I mean, I volunteered in terrestrial radio,
Absolutely.
CHFI and
Which
AM
is amazing.
640 and those things, but I didn't get a job in radio. And I was just talking to a colleague of ours, and sometimes after a year of searching, you just have to be like, oh my gosh, you know what? I have bills to pay. I need to find a
Yeah.
job,
There's no question.
right?
Absolutely. You gotta
Right?
you gotta take care of yourself, and there's I stopped looking a couple of years ago because I felt like, when I was done for the day, my second job was looking to try and find another job, and when that wasn't working out, I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to put pressure on myself. If I'm content enough, if I'm happy enough, if I've got a good thing going on here, who says that you have to, uh, aspire to more just because you think you should? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know
Um,
what? I think some people luck out with the opportunity because we're talking about relationships, but here's another
yeah,
thing. I'm not married, I don't have any kids, and people always say, well, how come you're not married? I feel like some people luck out better with that thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a sister, she met someone, she got married. I mean, everyone lucks out. Like, I don't know, we make choices in our lives, we fall in love with different people, and this is a show about relationships and how they impact our lives. But at the end of the day, sometimes we find that thing we've been searching for later on in our lives. Well,
There's no question.
not when we thought it would happen, right? And so I guess I could ask you the same thing, like, um, have you tried the online dating thing? Because I was talking to somebody else and they're like, oh, Carlene, I never had to do online dating. You know, I just met my girlfriend and we've been together for 11 years. So, I mean, for you, like, did you try
Yeah.
out? Yeah. Mhm.
Well, it's interesting because I never have wanted to. I've never felt the appeal of that. But now we're sort of living in a society where even before we were supposed to be physically distancing from each other, even before that, we had so many people from our generation and younger, and even people that are divorced or widowed or widowered, and they're trying to get back out into the dating game. Like, online is where it's at. I dip my toe in, to the point where I was talking to some people, but to me, and this is just me, um, I I feel like people that do the online dating, and I've ran into people that I'm certain I've offended, but they were very nice about it. What in talking about this this opinion of mine, um, I pontificated, and then the person tells me, "Oh, I met my husband online," like that kind of thing. I find out after I've sort of ranted about it a little bit, but for me personally, I think what you do is rather than go through life and in an organic way, come across somebody and then have that feeling of, oh, that particular person interests me. I'm gonna, make a move, or I'm gonna see if maybe they're interested too. I think what we're getting now is people that want to find, and you can't see me, but I'm doing quotations, someone, and they've already gone into the online dating pool wanting to find someone. And if the first person they interact with isn't that someone, they'll move on to the next person. They're already looking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, oh, you know what? I want to find someone. Like, for instance, there's somebody that has been in my inner circle over the last year or so who I watched go from a breakup to realizing that their partner had already moved on. And then they, hopped on the online dating and went on, a handful of dates. And of course, we live in a remote area, so that can be really tough. Hopped in the car and went a few hours to go on a few dates, and they're in a relationship now. And as an outsider, I really have no right to judge anybody else's romantic relationship. If you're happy and you feel fulfilled, then that's wonderful. But in my opinion, I watched somebody chase the idea of having someone rather than meeting somebody organically and saying, that's somebody I'm interested in. I wasn't looking for anyone and everyone, but that person interests me. I'm going to try. I feel like we've lost that. I feel like we're already going into the online dating world looking for someone rather than possibly the right one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is so deep. I think it's true. It's like, when you're doing things that you enjoy, you meet that person.
Right.
And yeah, you know what? I met someone, but it didn't work out. But I feel like I was going for a walk. I come back and I ran into that person again, and we exchanged numbers. And in the moment, for the time that it did last, it was a great experience. And I
Right.
didn't meet this
Exactly.
person online. They live in the same building as me. So it's like you said, we're going back to the core things, because I think in a traditional sense, it is nice to meet someone if it's in your circle or where you live, or if you met them through a friend or something that
Right.
you enjoy doing. You know what I mean? I don't know if you're like into ice fishing. My whole thing is volleyball, but sometimes you meet people in the weirdest, in just the unexpected place. You know what I
There's no
mean?
question. There's no
Yeah.
question. And I think it's harder and harder to do nowadays because, like so many things, even dating has turned digital, right? It's turned online, and I've heard people say, "Well, that's where everybody's meeting nowadays." Like it's already like an afterthought. Like if you want to meet somebody, that's how you have to meet them. And I'm not disparaging online dating. It's not for me because
Yeah.
I feel like you're already going in with a preconceived uh, feeling of wanting someone rather than the right one, as I said
Oh, okay.
before.
But I mean, I
So
think with online dating, if you hadn't gone on there, you might not meet someone. Because for me, I went on OkCupid like
sure,
last year, and I met someone, but it didn't work out to a relationship, but it's a great friendship. And had I
okay,
not done that, I wouldn't have met this person. And we have fun together. Like we go out to eat. We don't necessarily have a lot in common in terms of like music or
right,
movies, but this someone is a good friend. So I do get what you're saying about finding someone. But you're right. I feel like in a lot of ways, when I spend a lot of time by myself, it's important to be with someone that you've known them for a while. I think it's nice to have that connection where you know that person too. You
absolutely.
know what I mean? Yeah, even if it's for 6 months or whatever the time is.
And
You
I
know.
think you're right. I mean, I certainly have people in my life that, like yourself, I've met, on the internet, and they're wonderful people, and they've enriched my life, and they're amazing. But there's nothing romantic there.
Yeah.
Um, and you mentioned about having sort of the right person, and somebody that the more you spend time by yourself, the more you realize, okay, I'm gonna need, at least I think this is what you were getting at, is I'm gonna need to be with the person that is comfortable with me, and I'm comfortable with them, because at this stage of the game, we're in our mid-30s. A lot of stuff about us isn't going to change.
Yeah, they say
So
that. Like, I think this is it. I mean, once you hit 40, I don't really see. I don't think I'm going to change much. You improve on things, but this is it. This is my personality. This
I think
is,
so.
yeah, you know what I mean. And I think even though I met you 10 years ago, you're still a very humble person, very grateful for what you have, and that's the important thing. I think getting back to our conversation about COVID-19 is realizing the simple things, the small
Yeah.
things, those things that we took for granted before. And I think in doing my research on being a minimalist is that we realize now the concerts, the movies, the festivals, everything that we took for granted for before are no longer there now. So now we have to go back to the things that we used to find important. Like, I mean, maybe they have always been important, but it gives us that focus of like, it's important to have a good relationship with the family that you do get along with, and the friends that you get
Yes.
along with. And yeah.
There's absolutely no question, and I think that I think you're 100% right there. And you hear stories through what we've lived through in the last few months, and things like family game night have come back for families that have had to physical distance, and all you got is mom or dad, or whatever your family unit is, the kids, and you're all living in one house, and you're sort of told to stay home. So you're finding all these things to fill your time that aren't going out, like you said, going to movies or concerts or things like that, or public gatherings or festivals. You're staying home, and you're barbecuing, and you're putting a puzzle together, or you're finding ways to get your kids through this really strange time, and you're being creative with putting a tent up and camping in the backyard, or umpteen things to try and make this time you know, worthwhile. And in a sense, and I certainly don't want to discount, that this is a pandemic that has taken so many people. And it's not fair, and it's awful. There is this other side to it as well, of people being gifted this chance to slow down and enjoy simpler things.
Yeah, definitely. You like you said to me, you touched the nail. What is it?
You hit the
Yeah.
nail on the head.
You hit the nail on the head. There you go. You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. We are in studio with Johnathan Price. Johnathan, I'm so happy that we finally got to do this. I finally got my shit in order, and here we are, getting to have this conversation with you,
Me
which
too.
is so
Absolutely.
impactful. Do you have anything you want to share in terms of what you think people should take with them as something to remind themselves that during this pandemic, like, what's our message? What's your message?
I well, clearly, I'm no expert, but I appreciate you asking me a question like that. Um,
Yes.
I think I think the number one thing is we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, and we shouldn't be too hard on each other. I think that's probably even more so. If we're not feeling you know quite ourselves, like we can't kick it into that extra gear right now, or we can't solve all of our problems, or all of the problems in the people's lives that are immediately around us. then we really shouldn't beat ourselves up. And I think it's really strange because we're going through this at a time when there's a lot of upheaval and a lot of demand for social change. And we need to keep those voices right there at the forefront now until we see some change. So it's an interesting mix of we're living in a time where we want to push for things to be different. We need to push for things to be different. But at the same time, in a very small way, day to day, we have to cut ourselves a break, and we have to cut the people around us a break, because we're going through, for most of us, unprecedented times. And, we have to be gentle with others. We have to be gentle with ourselves.
That's important. We have to be patient. I feel like a lot of people get so angry. They're so impatient. And it does no good on yourself to get so upset over the smallest things. I think that's one thing I've realized when I deal with the public. It's like, there's other things to get upset about, like waiting in line for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's the least of our problems. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And here we are 10 years later, and you are in Fort Francis and doing your thing. And, for those who are listening, you can always tune in if you want to hear a friendly voice. Johnathan Price is on the Border 93.1 every day of the week from 12 to 6. Thanks, Johnathan, for being on the show. I hope you have a great rest of the summer, and that hopefully you'll come back on the show. You know what I mean?
I would love to.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. We have other things to talk about.
Absolutely. This was a really fun, organic conversation, but you're right. I think we could definitely talk about some other stuff too.
Yes, of course. I'm Carlene, and this is Carlene Tonight. Thanks for listening to Carlene Tonight.
My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it. My heart is larger than the ribs, larger than the ribs that contain it.